Let's go ahead and read the whole passage. And James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came up to him and said to him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." And he said to them, "What do you want me to do for you?" And they said to him, "Grant us to sit one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory." Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or to be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized?" And they said to him, "We are able." And Jesus said to them, "The cup that I drink, you will drink. And with the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit at my right hand or at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared." And when the 10 heard it, they began to be indignant at James and John. And Jesus called them to him and said to them, "You know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. But it shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Lord, thank you for your word. Thank you for your word that describes for us what leadership is. Thank you for your word that describes for us, Lord, that puts ambition in its right place. Lord, thank you for your word that teaches us now, Lord, how we are to serve in the kingdom and how you modeled it for us. So, Lord, would you speak to us? And we pray not only to us, Lord, but more so to the next generation. We pray that you would raise them up, set them apart, raise them up to leadership, raise them, Lord, to places of influence in the world, cause them to bring your good news and your godly influence everywhere you're going to bring them. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Again, good morning, everyone. Go ahead and take your seats. And you probably already noticed, as we told you at the beginning, these are our two, this is Welcome to our Campus Sunday. We're celebrating our students, our young people, our sons and our daughters, our nephews and nieces over the next 2 Sundays. As they prepare, some of them are still just about to go back to school, as they prepare for another school year, another semester, and as many have already begun, ito palang June. And this is something that hits all of us in a very personal way. Because it's either, as you listen to this now, it's either you're a student, you're currently on campus, or you're a parent, or you're an adult that has, wherein you have either sons and daughters, or nephews and nieces in your own home, or within your circle of influence. This series is called Lead Last. What does that even mean? All right. We're going to talk to the students, to the young people for the next 2 weeks about leadership. And we're addressing you, our sons, our daughters, our nephews, our nieces. We're addressing you, our students here in this room right now, believing that God has a call for your life and He has called you to lead. Trusting that He's the one who's forming you, molding you, encouraging you, putting His purpose inside of you, speaking to you, calling you out, even now, encouraging you, bringing clarity to your mind, bringing peace to your heart. We're trusting that the Lord is at work in each of your lives in the same way that He was in our lives during our time as students. And God has called you to lead, but then God has a very different definition of leadership. And as we just read in that passage, it's about being last. It's about being a servant. It's about being a slave. And it's a whole new paradigm when it comes to leading. So we're challenging you, young students, today, calling you out for the leadership roles and calling you out for the leadership grace that God has prepared for you. But then allowing you to understand that in order to lead in this world and to follow in Jesus' footsteps, it would have to be a different paradigm of leadership altogether. So we lead, but in a way wherein we will be or we are last. You probably heard this already. Nakita niyo po ba ito? Change the campus, change the world. Okay? And right here, if you could come by at some point and just go to that place. 8 reasons. It's called our Campus Manifesto. 8 reasons why we're reaching the campus. 8 reasons why we're believing for a harvest from the campuses in our time. At bawat isa po sa atin, at some point, was also a student. And now the Lord is using you to be able to lead in society, whether that be leading your own home, leading your family, leading in your village, in your community, leading in your career, in your profession, leading in your business, or maybe a particular area of society, leading in government, in the academe, leading in the arts and media. The point is, we who were once students before now occupy places of influence and leadership. And wouldn't it be great if we get to reach the generations early, at the time that they are still very impressionable, at the time wherein their hearts are supple before the Lord, as Jesus himself has said, let the little children come to me, for theirs to them belong the kingdom of God. The faith of the child, the childlike faith that we, when we were still students, or when we were younger, that we were able to respond to God with. And we're excited to be able to see a lot of that. Now, a quick picture of, ito po, picture namin nung college. I was first year college at that time, and this was us, okay? Youth on Fire yung pangalan. Ngayon, ang tawag na natin, Every Nation Campus. But in our time, it's the same thing. Youth on Fire. Yeah, medyo baduy, no? Pero this was us. I'm the guy to the leftmost, okay? This was us when we were doing an event in UP Manila. This was around 1992. And these were my ates and kuyas. They were part of those who discipled me, imparted their life to me. And that involvement on campus literally molded my life, changed my life, and allowed me to see that God does have a purpose. So who would have known na ang ganyang itsura ay may kapupuntahan na maayos-ayos sa buhay? That the Lord began to turn my life around. The Lord began to give me a sense of purpose. The Lord allowed me to serve initially as a physical therapist, then eventually as a campus missionary. Began to put in me a burden for my fellow students on campus. And then at some point, God allowing us to get involved in church planting, even in leading a local church. And then now, here in Santa Rosa, being able to grow with this particular community. The Lord has a purpose for each of our lives. If God did not apprehend me, I would just have gone my own way, and then, my life would just have been destroyed. What would it profit a man if he gains the whole world, yet loses his soul? And yet, when we surrender our lives to the Lord, especially at a young age, then the Lord gives us the rest of our lifetime to be able to live for God and pursue His purposes. And it does, and that particular idea is something that we would like to be able to lodge, especially in the next generation today. Go ahead and show the previous slide. I'd like for us to just muse upon this statement. No, even prior to that, the one prior to that. That idea that, could this actually be true? That young people are called to lead. Are young people called to lead? Is this something that we could all agree with? For those of you who are students here, is this something that you would believe, embrace? Is this something that you think is real for you? Now, my children would tell me, why would anyone want to lead? It's so intimidating. I get that too. And that's true. But when the Lord turns your heart towards Him, and He now gives you a sense of purpose in life, then we get to understand that the only way, or rather, part of that purpose is leadership. Always leadership. Because when God, right from the very beginning in Genesis 1, when God blessed Adam and Eve, and He told them, go be fruitful, increase in number, go ahead and fill the earth. And then He gives a word. He gives them a mandate. He tells them, and subdue it. The idea of subduing the world means to rule the world, means to lead the world. And because of the fall of man, our sin, we've ruined the world. We know that we were not able to lead the world properly. The way that we subdued the world was not in a godly way, but rather in an abusive way, in our own ways of leadership that are often not good in the very end. But until today, when God, now that Jesus has already redeemed us, that same call to leadership remains. And that call to leadership is given to every generation. And it's pretty obvious for those who are older, those who are adults, if you already have positions in your own companies, in your own businesses, of course, naturally, we recognize the fact that you're functioning in leadership. But what about the younger people? What about those people who are still naive, just starting out, inexperienced, not really knowing what to do? Has God also called them to lead even in their time? Would they have to wait for another decade before they would begin to exercise godly leadership wherever God has placed them? And our answer to that is this: no. They can lead right where they are. The young people are called to lead. And as Jesus led, and as we are called to follow Jesus, and Jesus began to influence the people around him, then God has also called us to influence the people around us, whether that be your classmates, org mates, your squad, whether that be the people whom you play Roblox with, or Mobile Legends, or whatever other online game you play, whether that be the people whom you get to chat with in the cafe, whether that be the people whom you play sports with. The Lord has called you, young people. Young people, God has called you to lead where you are. And the Lord has anointed you in your youth to be able to lead, however limited that may be. And in fact, we're going to show you an even better way. What's intimidating about leadership is the idea of like calling the shots, being in charge. You don't even have to start there. At least that's what the passage tells us. You don't even have to start at that place of our usual thought of leadership, which is the idea that I must or I have to be the one calling the shots. And indeed, as we are able to reach more and more young people, we're believing God that He will use the young people to be able to change the campus. And eventually, when they grow up, they will change the world. Why will they change the world, the young people? Well, eto siya. By default, they will. You know why? Because we will grow old, we will retire, we will expire. So by definition, by default, the younger people who come after us will be the ones to replace us in leadership roles in society. So whether for the good or for the bad, whatever happens on the campus and whatever happens among students is what they will bring when they finally have families of their own, when they finally have careers or professions of their own, when they finally have positions of leadership in society of their own. So thus, the idea, let's go ahead and reach them while they're young. Let's go ahead and change the campus in order that they eventually will change the world. So going back to the passage in Mark chapter 10, I'd like for us to start off at verse 41, where it says there, "And when the 10 heard it, they began to be indignant at James and John." You remember the story, right? So James and John went to Jesus, told him, "Hey, Jesus, how about making us to be like your left hand and your right hand when you appear in your glory?" And when that day comes, that's like the most prominent positions ever in leadership. And then the rest of the 10 heard about it, and they were indignant. They were angry. Why? Well, a few reasons probably. Pwedeng yung isa, naunahan kami dun ah. Naunahan kami. Kasi in the reality, most of the disciples, and you'll see this in the rest of the other passages, that most of the disciples have their own ambitions of leadership and prominence, even within Jesus or among Jesus' band pa lang. So even in that context, to a certain degree, they wanted to also have those places of leadership. But James and John beat them to it. But in addition to that, that whole idea of reacting to James and John is because what makes you think that you guys are better than the rest of us? So that's also part of their pride being challenged, maybe. And that idea that it's also because it actually reveals to us that the general perspective of leadership is always about being on top, being first, being in charge, taking over, calling all of the shots, having all of the privilege, and just being at that very prominent position, which now Jesus is about to flip on its head. Jesus is about to say or to define leadership in a whole new way. Brings us to verse 42. "And Jesus called them to him and said to them, 'You know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them.'" And this is what Jesus was saying. Think about those people. The first word that he uses would be rulers of the Gentiles. Ruler means chief. Chief, meaning they're the first ones. And then the second word that he uses would be the great ones. The idea of those who are magnified in the eyes of the Gentiles, in the eyes of the nations, in the eyes of the peoples. That's the common understanding of leadership. Tama. In reality, ganun din tayo mag-isip, di ba? When you're the president of the class, immediately, you know that, oh, okay, so I'll have to be the one, I'll make the shot, I'll call the shots, and sometimes, we even force our way. Sino nga ulit ang presidente rito? Bakit ka pumaporma ng kakaiba? Okay. Bakit hindi mo ako sinusunod? Sino nga ulit ang presidente? The moment that we sometimes pull out our calling cards to be able to impose on the fact that we should have the last say on certain things. That's the definition of the world. In fact, it would say there, those who are considered rulers, they will lord it over. The idea of lording it over is is subjugation. I will subjugate you. I will be over you. I will force it if need be. I will lord it over you. And then the second definition, it would be that they exercise authority. So it's all about power. It's about authority. It's about position. It's about privilege. And that's how the world often does it. But then Jesus says, but it shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant. Jesus redefines leadership to be serving. Serving. Young people, if you're thinking leadership is so intimidating, you don't even have to start at the top. Go start at serving. The idea that what can I do with what I have to be able to help with a particular situation? Where can I begin? With the class in terms of me being used of God. Because now that you have put your faith in Jesus and God has given you a purpose in your heart, you know that the Lord will use you right where you are, right at your young age. The Lord is able to use you to make a difference already in your own world. We read the passage in 1 Timothy 4 verse 12. I'm trying to remember when. Oh, at the prayer meeting. One of our prayer meetings, during the prayer and fasting, we read from 1 Timothy 4:12. And part of what we said was this, and that passage says this. Young people, Paul was talking to Timothy. Timothy, do not let anyone look down on you because you're young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in life, in love, in faith, and in purity. So Paul was exhorting Timothy, a young pastor. He was in his early 20s possibly, when Ephesus, the church at Ephesus, was entrusted to him. Nadaan sila ni Paul, iniwan siya doon. Okay? So, Timothy is now pastoring a church. He's pretty young. He does not know what to do. And then Paul writes to him, reminds him, Timothy, don't let anyone look down on you because you're young. That's not a perspective of pride. It's more of a perspective of understanding your identity. Yet, yes, even though I am young, the Lord has given me a sense of purpose. The Lord has given me a sense of direction. And God has given me a role to be able to pastor this local church in Ephesus. Rather, set an example. So it's actually possible for young people to set an example for the older people. Oh yes, when it comes to faith, let the young people set the example for us. When it comes to pursuit of God and passion for Him and energy in terms of that pursuit, let the young people set the example for us. Now, before us, the current generation, or rather the generation ahead, before you check out, okay, you're probably thinking, para pala to sa mga estudyante. Actually, not necessarily so. Because all of us have our appropriate participation in terms of empowering the young people to lead. Part of it is for us as parents, for us to speak purpose to our children. Especially to us as fathers, we define our children with our words. You probably underestimate that, but your word as a father, in many ways, defines your children. When, a simple comment like, wala ka talagang kwenta, wala mangyayari sa buhay mo, wala kang kapupuntahan, hay nako. I know that can just be an outburst, that can just be a sort of a simple statement. But for a young person to be able to receive that, and a father to speak that, and the words bearing such a weight and an authority such that it's able to mold and define a person, especially a young person that impressionable, oh boy, those statements go a long way. The flip side is also true. When we actually speak to our children and say, God has a purpose for your life. I believe in you. I got your back. We'll never forsake you. We'll always be there for you. And the Lord has a great purpose for your life. We believe in you. Go ahead and walk, in God's purpose for your life. we have an appropriate participation. We might not necessarily be the ones to go on campus, but for sure we can breathe life into the lives of these young people, into the lives of these students. And some of you here, there are actually those of you who might be called of God to also still go on the campus. We have students, in U-Belt. So we have a group leader who's a mom in Victory U-Belt. Ang tawag doon, every ENC, every nanay campus. All right? She's calling on the nanays to be able to help with reaching the young people. So we have different generations all directed toward being able to reach the young people. Let me do a side trip. You might, if you're new here in Victory, and you might be wondering, why do we always talk about the young people in that way? Why are they our most prominent outreach? Why is most of our efforts, or rather, they converge on the idea of mobilizing the next generation, reaching the next generation? The reason for that is this. God has given to us as a movement, as a church. We started on campus. Most of our leaders were reached out on campus. This movement was birthed on campus. And God has given us a stewardship for the campuses of the world. And this is how we do it. Every time we go to a church, go do a church plant, whether that be a province, a city, or maybe another nation, we just go to the capital. The capital of that nation. Let's find where there is the greatest concentration of campuses. And then that's where we plant the churches. And our grid when it comes to thinking about this particular city, is this strategic, would always be this, or this particular location, is that the place where we should plant a church in? Our first question is always, are there campuses around the area? Because if there are campuses around the area and that place is rich with campuses, that's where God has called us to. And in so doing, we've actually seen a huge benefit to that. As we've reached the campus, they eventually led in the context of church. And there's always a fresh infusion of young blood, of fresh energy and vigor. And we always have we have multiple layers of leaders, all the way from those who've gone ahead of them, like 3 or 4 generations up, and even those who are still in their early 20s. It's pretty amazing what God has done to us, Victory as a movement, and to us, every nation as a movement, as He has entrusted to us the campuses. Why the campus? It's our stewardship. God has called us to reach the campuses of the world. The young people are the ones who respond to God. 80% of those who respond to Christ respond before they reach the age of 19. And that opportunity to reach this particular cross-section of society, and the possibility of training them to be godly, so that eventually when we launch them to be leaders, they would make such a beautiful, godly impact. It shall not be so among you, Jesus says, but whoever would be great among you must be your servant. Leadership is serving. It's finding a way to be able to meet certain needs in the place where we're at, even without position, even without acclaim or acknowledgement, even without applause. And that's part of the training of our ushering team. The ushering team, that's where I got started also. Our ushering team, our ushering serve team here, they serve in the background. You won't even notice them. But they're the ones who make sure that the physicality of the church, especially during the service, is taken care of. And they are quick to be able to meet physical needs, including emergencies. And it's amazing that that place of service actually molds your heart. You don't need a position to be able to lead. You just need a heart to serve. Because that's how Jesus defined it. Leadership is serving. In fact, further he says, and whoever would be first among you must be slave of all. There's a difference between those two words, servant and slave. Servant and slave. And the idea is that not only is leadership serving, but serving is giving of yourself to others. Serving is giving of yourself to others. How does that work out? If you notice the passage, the idea of a servant, that's in the original word is diakonos. That's where we get the word deacon in our day. So these are, sometimes the deacon is like a position in church, right? Where you get to serve or to lead a certain portion of the ministry. But the root is just the idea of being quick on your feet and kicking up dust. Yun yung literal na ibig sabihin ng word na diakonos. You kick up dust. What does that mean? Every time there's a need, you kick up dust to be able to serve immediately. You run to whatever there's so much initiative. There's grace to be able to do whatever needs to be done in order to serve, whether that be the church, the campus, your family. And for you students, a quick way to get it started in your home. Sometimes the home is difficult. You often, when you go home, you just want to stay there, connect to Wi-Fi, and just enjoy the rest of the day, right? But the home would be a good place to get trained in terms of serving. And a simple question, just ask this question: how can I help? Simpleng tanong lang. Find yourself in any situation. When you get home from school, how can I help? When you wake up in the morning, how can I help? When right before you go to sleep or after dinner, how can I help? It's a simple question, and that's actually a heart to serve. That's you being trained to serve. And if you're thinking that, I don't know how to begin, how to even do that, well, it's just giving of yourself to others. What do you have that you can give to someone? Is that encouragement? That's serving. Is it time? That's serving. Is it prayer? That's serving. Is it preaching the gospel? That's serving. What is it that you have that you can give of yourself to other people? Is it resources, money? That's serving. So the idea of service is actually simply generosity. Generosity with yourself, and I'm not just talking about money or resources, generosity with yourself in terms of what you could give to other people. God has given each of us gifts. That's how the Bible would describe it, spiritual gifts. God may have given you a gift of administration, a gift of mercy, a gift of leadership, a gift of teaching, a gift of encouragement. Use those gifts to be able to serve someone else. That's what leadership means. Along the way, as you serve in that way, the Lord will enable you to serve even more. The positions do eventually follow. The prominence does eventually follow, but it's not the primary thing in leadership. Because even when you get to a place of prominence, when you become first, when you become the primary person now, you're calling the shots, even in that place, your heart is still, how can I serve? How can I help? How can I address the situations? How can I make it better for our people? I like to call up two ladies right now. I like to call up Hazel and Dian. Hazel is one of our campus directors. She's the one who covers for the work in Binyan. In fact, she's part of our church planting team there. Dian is one of our students, one of our engineering students in PUP, Binyan also. So both of them are from Binyan. In fact, Hazel was the one who preached at our 9 a.m. service. Fantastic. I like for us to just hear a bit from them in terms of what's going on right now in Binyan, and a few of these stories of how they and our students there are being used of God to lead in the context of serving. Quick, let me just frame it a bit. We have an ongoing work of church plant in Binyan. We have currently around 27 group leaders that are serving there. It's pretty amazing. Out of those 27, 16 of those are students. 16 student group leaders who are part of our church planting team in Binyan, whom Hazel leads. Let's go ahead and hear from them.
Thank you, Pastor John. Maybe for some of us, ready na tayo to serve. Let's go, let's serve, let's change the campus. But the question is, how do we serve? How can I serve? And for us to serve the campus, we really need to know, where are the students now? Where are the youth now? You know what, for the past 2 weeks, we have heard this news, diba, that breaks our hearts. News that is happening inside the campus. News about shooting, stabbing. You know what, it breaks our heart, because if not, diba, there's something wrong. And you know, for the past month, we were able to have the opportunity to serve Bahay Pag-asa, youth in Bahay Pag-asa. Narinig niyo na po ba yun? Bahay Pag-asa is a place or a shelter of the youth where the youth who committed crime, okay, doon po sila pumupunta, and they were staying there and waiting for court disposition. Their age is 15 years old to 18 years old. And you know what? During this 2 days retreat with them, it is actually an outreach program. During the days that we were with them, we were able to hear their stories. Actually, we didn't ask what they did. Bakit sila nandun? They are the one to shared. And it breaks our heart na some of them, they admitted that they have committed crime. One of them, he said, I am here, ate, kasi my kuya asked me to, do shoplift. Okay? Ayaw niya. Pero the pressures of the world is pushing him to do wrong things. One of the students, one of the youth shared, sabi niya, ate, nandito ako kasi may nag-offer ng trabaho. It is human trafficking. Hindi niya alam. He came from province. He went to Manila to work, to have a job. But when he was there, he discovered that it was human trafficking. He involved in crime that he didn't know. Another one, he shared that two of his friends was killed in front of him. And he was involved in that in the crime where yun nga nagnakaw sila and all, and two of his friends was killed in front of him. And you know what, the trauma, the pain that they are carrying. And during that stay, we were able to share the gospel to these students. And we have a time with them and ask them what are their dreams. They have the opportunity to shared kung ano yung mga pangarap nila sa buhay. Pinag-drawing natin sila ng vision board. Some of them, they want to be doctors, they want to be chef. And because of the overflowing love that they have received from God, sabi nung isa, ate, parang gusto kong magpastor. Kasi grabe pala yung word ni God na ginagawa sa buhay ng tao. Until now, they are in Bahay Pag-asa. But you know what? This youth, they are not there if we were able to share the gospel to them. This youth, there is a lot of youth waiting to hear the gospel. But whenever we will see them, we will not look at them na youth na walang pag-asa. Because one day, they will face judgment here on earth, but they still have hopes. We still believe in them. Because if serving means continue to dream, continue to encourage, continue to train them, and so we refuse to give up. And one of the things that we are doing now in Binyan Bayan is church planting, as Pastor John said. And one of the work that we are doing to start the church plant is go inside the campus. And you know what? Binyan Bayan alone was surrounded with 8 campuses. And each campuses, there's thousands of students studying there. Imagine that. And Binyan Bayan alone is surrounded by communities and barangays. So inside the campus, there's thousands of students waiting to hear the gospel. Imagine with me, what world would we have if those thousands of students will hear the gospel, receive Jesus Christ in their life. Imagine with me, thousands of students will rise up in leadership. We'll be having righteous leaders in the future. We're not just praying. We're discipling them. We're serving them. We're leading them to the right place. Thank you, Pastor John.
Quick comment. We used to call them juvenile delinquents, right? We're not using that now. They are youth in conflict with the law. At least hindi na label. Rather, it's just about the behavior and the idea that, hey, they can still be redeemed despite that. Let's go ahead and hear from Dian.
Hello po, church. I'm Dian and one of the student leaders here po sa Victory and graduating student po from PUP Binyan. And ayun, allow me to quick share yung testimony ko na na-reach out lang din po ako sa school. And I'm one of the student out there na lost and seeking the purpose sa mundo. Hinahanap yung purpose ko sa mundo and ano ba yung love na para sa akin. And ayun, one day, in-invite ako ng teacher ko na si Ma'am Santos sa isang Christmas party sa Victory. And that day, ginamit yun ni Lord to invite me and to know Jesus in my life. So that day, yung standard sa mundo na hinahanap ko, nahanap ko yun sa standard ng word ni God, which is yung gospel niya. And fast forward po, after my discipleship journey, God called me to preach the gospel inside the campus. But during that year kasi po is pandemic. So, I asked Lord, paano ako mag-share ng gospel if pandemic noon? But I was able to take the course na diploma. Yung diploma course po kasi is 3-year course. So, after that I continue to ladderize to bachelor. So, nadagdagan ng years yung pag-aaral ko. And that moment na tinake ko yun is bumalik na po sa normal school days. So, ayun na, may privilege ako to share the gospel. And ayun, I asked Lord, paano ako mag-share? Bakit ako ganyan? But I received confirmation from the Lord, from Isaiah na, yung sinagot ni Isaiah yung call niya, na here I am, use me. Here I am, Lord, use me. And hindi ko alam paano ako gagamitin, but alam ko lang, yung purpose ko sa school is to share the gospel. So, fast forward po, God opened a door, an opportunity inside our campus. So, nakapag-build kami ng campus ministry inside the campus called Next Generation Campus Ministry. Actually, it was not easy. Ang daming requirements po, and it requires members, 50 members. So, sabi ko, Lord, saan kami kukuha nun? But God able to do that. Nagkaroon kami ng member in one day. So, yung school ni-required lang po kami ng one day to process our requirements and that. And ayun, actually we start small group sa campus, one-to-one, discipleship, and Bible study. And recently we had an event called Leadership Seminar, Faith, Integrity, and Excellence. And that day, 100 students hear a word of God and we able to share the gospel also. And ayun, through God faithfulness, sa organization namin, nagawa namin is i-share yung gospel sa kanila. And ayun po, I know na during my year, God used me to use His purpose na i-share yung gospel sa mga classmates ko, sa mga students sa PUP Binyan. And yun, encouragement ko lang po to all students out there na may position. I know, hindi naman po masama yung position or yung title, but God used that position to advance His kingdom. So, you can a voice and gagamitan ka ni Lord to change your campus. Siyempre mag-start yan muna sa pagiging leader mo sa classroom nyo. And ayun, encouragement ko lang sa mga students na katulad ko and even sa mga teacher na nagtuturo sa mga school nila. Invite nyo lang yung mga students nyo to take part sa church natin. Ayun po, I know that year and during my year po sa school ko is God never promised na hindi yun magiging madali. But I know lang is magiging worth it po siya. Ayun po.
Thank you so much. Maraming salamat, Hazel and Dian. And that last story coming from Dian is an example of serving the campus. That statement coming from Jesus that it shall not be so among you. Your starting point is not lording it over. Your starting point is not exercising authority, but rather being a servant and a slave. He brought it on even to the next level when he mentioned the word slave. That word slave, the original word is doulos. The idea is to be the property of someone else, to be in full subjection to someone, such that there is no possibility of being set free. There's like 3 levels of slaves in their time. There's voluntary ones, and then there's those who get slavery because of debt. There are those who are born into it. But the design of slavery during the Roman times is just 7 years, and that's it. After that, you can get free. But this particular definition, that word right there, is like you'll be there forever. No, absolutely no rights. And Jesus used that word to bring it to the extreme, to the picture to the extreme, the idea that this is what leadership looks like. That it's not just, yes, serving other people, that's a beautiful thing. You're able to give of yourself to others. But often it will also mean that you are last. You'll be last. You'll be last. There's a book that came out around a decade ago. The title was simply this: Leaders Eat last. You ever been in a buffet? Everyone rushes to it immediately, right? But then you opt for everyone else to be able to go. And that person who's, the person who allows everyone first to be able to eat, to make sure that everyone is done, would often be the, what do you call that? The head of the party, so to speak. The one who's actually overseeing everything. And then finally, you'll in fact encourage them, oh, kain ka na, the host. So finally, the host finally is. But the idea is that that's part of leadership. We as leaders, we lead, even to the point of being last. For Jesus, He actually did it. He actually lived it out. The idea of being last for Jesus was, and this is what He said, right? In the next passage, for even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give His life as a ransom for many. The kind of service that Jesus gave, is giving of all of Himself. Tayo, what's being asked of us to serve as we lead is giving something of ourselves. It's giving a gift, giving a portion of your talent, a portion of your resources, a portion of your compassion, a portion of your boldness to be able to serve someone else. But for Jesus, the kind of example He set was, He gave His all. He did not come to be served, but He served. And to give His life, next level, ransom for many. A ransom would be like the redemption price. So it's us being slaves of sin and us being redeemed from our slavery. He paid the price. And the price, the redemption price, is His life, His blood. Jesus set that as an example. I love that. I love the idea that, yes, He modeled it for us. Leadership is serving. Leadership is giving of ourselves, of yourself to others. And it means you'll be last. So to summarize that, to lead is to be last, as to lead is to serve the way that Jesus did. I'd like to invite everyone now to stand. An application for us. First, for the students. Do you actually believe that God called you to lead? Will you be willing to embrace the idea that, yeah, God called me to serve my campus, and that's what leadership means? When we say that God called you to lead, God called you to serve your campus. Dian went out of her way to be able to reach these 50 to 100 students within Binyan. She went out of PUP Binyan. She went out of her way to even set aside, set apart, or rather organize these things and even trainings just to be able to serve her fellow students. It doesn't have to be that kind of magnitude. There's always a place to begin. But for you young people, do you believe that God indeed called you to lead? And would you be willing to do so? By serving. Starting to serve. Find it. Find your place of service. First in the home, and then on campus. Find your place of service. Because later on, we would love for you to be our government leaders. We would love for you to be the leaders who are not corrupt, who have integrity, whose desire is really to serve the public, to really live out being public servants. We'd love for you to be our business leaders who will earn so much money by the billions, but are not owned by the money and know where the money should go. We would love for you, young people, to be the heads of families, faithful to their spouses and faithful to their children. We would love to see you and your leadership grow. Initially, you get trained on campus, you serve on campus, but then eventually, you will lead in society. We're excited to see that come to pass. We believe, naniniwala kami, that that's going to happen, which is why we're praying for you, investing in you, encouraging you, and we're entrusting responsibilities to you. Now, for the rest of us, the other generations, is there a young person in your circle? Might there be a way for you to serve them also? Whether that be serving them in the gospel, serving them by providing money for their tuition, serving them by providing encouragement and prayers, serving them by serving their families. What has God called you? What is God speaking to you in terms of your possible involvement in the next generation? None exempt. None of us would be exempt. All of us are called by God to be involved. Find your appropriate participation. Would that be cooking for the students in your village, inviting them in your home, and just, letting them experience joy at least, even for a brief moment? Would you be willing to go on campus with us and actually start small groups there? Would you be willing to lend your professional expertise for trainings we do on campus? Would you be willing to counsel some students and be like a big sister, big brother to them as they go through their seasons of difficulty? Let's find how God may want us to participate in an appropriate manner when it comes to our ministry to the young people, to the students, to the campuses in our area. Oh, may God speak to us. Oh, may God speak to us. I'd like to just give us a brief moment. Go ahead and respond to God. Ask Him, Lord, how would you like me to be appropriately involved? How would you like me to follow your example? How would you like me to lead and serve?